Today we're going to be covering decimal addition and subtraction. While there are many different methods for solving problems that involve decimals that are adding or subtracting, we're really going to focus on the standard algorithm here, and we're going to just make sure that we have everything lined up. That's number one priority here, is making sure that our work is organized. Let's start with a number that doesn't have a decimal in it, just to show you what I'm talking about when I say that you need to make sure that you have things organized. If we were going to do this problem right here, 734, and we're going to subtract 56 from that, we have to make sure that we have everything in line. And what I mean by that is our tens have to line up with our tens, our hundreds have to line up with hundreds, ones have to line up with ones. So if we're going to rewrite this problem, I'm not just going to do this in my head, I'm going to write this out. Or I'm going to plug this into a calculator, but if you don't have a calculator handy, this is how we can solve it, right? We need to be able to do it ourselves before we rely on technology. So 734 minus 56. Oh, that's not right. What's wrong with this? Okay, my tens are in the hundreds place. This is not 500. This is only 50. It should be lined up right here with the 3. This doesn't work. Okay, if we were to write this correctly, it would be 734 minus 56. Everything is lined up. And what I mean by that, ones with ones, tens with tens, hundreds, there is nothing here. You could fill in a 0 here, it would not change the number, but for me, I'm just going to leave it blank. If we look here in the ones column, I cannot take 6 away from 4. I don't have enough here. So I need to trade one of these tens, make this 2 tens, and this becomes 14. Okay, we took 1 10, added it to 4, so we have 14 now. We can now subtract in our ones column, and we would have 8 left over. Here we come to our tens column. I have 2 tens, so this is actually 20 minus 50 right now. If I only have 20, I cannot take 50 away. So I need to take one of my hundreds and make this actually 600. And this is now 600. And we're going to give one of those hundreds over to here. So now we have 120 minus 50. Okay, simplify it. It's actually just 12 minus 5. That's going to be a difference of 7. And then we have our 600 left over. We have nothing to subtract from that. So our answer would be 678. In our next problem, we're going to be doing decimal subtraction here. Nothing is going to change. We just have to make sure that we are lining up our decimals and filling in zeros where we possibly need them. So our first step is going to be rewriting this as a subtraction problem vertically so that we can work through it. Now, I've gone ahead and color-coded these just so we can see which numbers are going to line up with one another. Remember, the one thing that you need to pay attention to very closely is we just have to make sure that our decimals are lined up, and then if we have anything left over, we have spots that don't have a number, we're going to add a placeholder 0. Like I said, I've color-coded them, so you have the 3 and the 0 are going to line up, the 7 and the 6 are going to line up, the 9 and the 8 are going to line up. But if we look here, this has one extra digit. It has a digit in the thousandths place, and my original number does not, so that's where we're going to put that placeholder. So let's go ahead and rewrite this. We are going to have 3 and 79 hundredths for our first number, and we are subtracting 0, decimal. Decimals are lined up. That's the important part. 681 thousandths. Let's write that down. And you can see here, this 1, we've got nothing to take away from, so we have to put a placeholder 0 here. This did not add value to this number because it's a 0 at the end of a decimal. From here, we would just follow our basic rules for subtraction. We have no thousandths minus 1 thousandths. So we have to borrow actually, or we have to trade in, I should say, one of these hundredths for 10 thousandths. So we would go ahead and write, this becomes 10 thousandths. 10 thousandths minus 1 thousandths is going to be 9 thousandths. This is actually 8 hundredths now. 8 hundredths, subtract 8 hundredths, you're left with nothing there. Then we would move to the tenths place, 7/10, take away 6/10, we're left with 1/10. We keep our decimal, it comes straight down in our problem. We have 3 minus 0, so we still have 3. So our subtraction problem's done here. Our answer would be 3 and 109 thousandths. Addition with decimals really follows the same rules as subtraction with decimals. We just have to make sure that we're lining up those decimals in our problem and just adding from right to left like we normally would on a typical addition problem with whole numbers. So here we're going to look at a little bit more of an advanced addition problem with decimals, but I think that we can handle it as long as we can line up the decimals because we know how to add things. We've been doing that for a long time. So we have 3.14, which is actually pi, or the abbreviated version of pi, and we're going to add 567 and 508 thousandths to that. Remember, our first step is to rewrite this vertically just so it's easy to work with. So let's go ahead and do this. And I'm always a fan of putting my larger number on the top of an addition problem. Now that's a property that we can do or that we can use with addition problems. It doesn't matter which one comes first. We cannot do that with subtraction because that would change our answer. So we're going to do 567 and 508 thousandths. And we are going to be adding 3. Remember, we're lining up our decimals, and if we were to go left and right from there, here's our 3, 1, 4, and here we're going to put a placeholder 0. We're not adding anything to the value of that number because it's the end of a decimal there. So now we have our problem rewritten vertically, and we would go ahead and add from right to left like we typically would, making sure that we are carrying over any tens that we make, any hundreds that we make. So let's go ahead and work through this. So let's go ahead and start on the far right over here. 8 thousandths plus no thousandths would be 8 thousandths. We have nothing up here, plus 4 hundredths, so this would be 4 hundredths. 5 tenths plus 1 tenth would be 6 tenths. Here's our decimal, remember it's just coming straight down. 7 plus 3, all right, so we made another 10. So we're going to put a placeholder 0 there, put our 10 in our tens place, or our 110 in our tens place. So this would actually be 70 now, and we bring the 5 straight down. And we would have our answer there, 570 and 648 thousandths. So that was just a quick review of how to do decimal subtraction and addition. All you really have to focus on is making sure that you have things lined up, you know how to trade, and you'll be good to go.